Warrior, we have a very special guest with us this afternoon. October 31st, 2024 is Halloween Day. And please welcome Lionel. Lionel, one name, legal and media analyst, also Lionel Nation on YouTube twice a day, 8 a.m. ET and 7 p.m. ET. And he also is my saint of a husband. And today we're going to talk about a couple of headlines. I want him to bring us up to speed legally what is going on with these cases pending. The first thing, Lionel, I want to say is welcome to the Warriors.
Thank you.
I want to ask you, I want to get an update on, I call him Dirty Diddy, aka Sean Combs.
Why?
Why do I call him Dirty Diddy? Because I just look at him and, hearing rumors for years about him, about the music business, about rap, all of that in particular. Again,
he's a dirtbag. He's a dirtbag. He's a low life, a scuzz bucket. He's the lowest form of life. He's vermin. But he's one of many.
Well, I want to go through. We don't know right now. Today, in New York, there was a grand jury get together, I guess we would call it, and we don't know what they're looking at exactly.
It's supposed to be secret. How do we know that? It's supposed to be secret.
Well, every press release and news organization sent out that they were convening in New York today, and we don't know, because again, it's supposed to be secret, exactly what this is about. I have always maintained, this is my opinion, I don't have proof, that this will end up being some sort of male minors sex trafficking ring. That remains to be seen. We don't know what this is. But here's what I want to ask you about this. Give us an update on the case, because it is now believed to be going to trial in May of 2025. Every day it seems like we have new lawsuits. We're starting to hear about minors. We have a 9-year-old, we have a 10-year-old, we have a 13-year-old, and a 17-year-old that I can remember off the top of my head. Give us your take on this entire case, where you think it might be going.
13-year-old, 10-year-old, then.
Yes, at the time. Yes, at the time.
Not that it matters, but I'm saying, remember,
at the time.
These are cases that happened a long time ago, decades ago. And listen, anything could be the case. Don't be surprised if you see charges of murder. Don't be surprised if you have connections with Tupac and Biggie and Jimmy Hoffa. Don't be surprised as this thing opens up, because prosecutors, as you know, love publicity like anybody else. And if this is interesting, if this is fascinating, it's so funny. I was thinking about this, that I was talking to somebody, and I was hearing that, the feds really don't have the mafia anymore, the LCN. So what they're doing is they're going after cartels in order to get those big headlines. So they love this. That's kind of what they do. That's what the feds do. There's also the state, remember, that's federal. State charges would apply. Then there's civil. Civil is lawsuits, money. Criminal is justice and jail. So you have federal, state, civil, criminal. You can have state civil, federal civil, state criminal, federal civil. You can have all kinds of permutations. New York, LA, Florida. So let me just tell you, he is charged with a host of things. Let's get down to the $1 million question. I always ask, if I represented Diddy, I would say, you're never going to get out of here. You're never going to see the light of day. Let's use up all your money, all of your assets on legal fees. I don't know who gets what first in terms of perfecting liens, because I'm sure he's got mortgages and liens and refinancing. God knows what. He's pledged it. I don't know what anybody is going to end up with, like we were talking before, like a $2,500, like one of those weird, those class action suits. If you went to, Radio Shack, you get $1. Of course, there's 10 million people who did this. So I don't know what's happening. But let's go through this. And here's what nobody's talking about. How are you going to prove this? If I represent Diddy, I know nobody cares about it, because he's already. Let me ask you something. Do we know for a fact that he's guilty of anything? Probably. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Very rarely do you see cases where they just pick somebody as a practical joke and hit him with multiple federal charges. But remember, we don't know anything. We don't know anything. Another thing, too, is you can have things that happen, but you can't prove. So if I were Diddy, I'd say, okay, you were 10 years old. Yeah. Tell me what happened. Prove it. Now, if
Well,
they say, what do you
what
mean?
if there's an emergency room record and there's also
Absolutely.
law
Corroboration.
enforcement? You know, a lot of these people do claim they did try to go to the police and nothing happened, or
Mhm.
they were told to go home,
Oh, that would be
or
really
now,
important.
but now what's happening is people are digging back through. Remember, this was at the beginning of people having cell phones. I mean, it actually started, the
Right.
first case is 93, I believe. It goes back to 93. So people started having cell phones maybe a little bit later in the 90s, but people are coming forth now, but they're calling these internet sleuths, and they're providing pictures,
Mhm.
pictures of people at the party on that date. I don't even know. Obviously, that can prove you're there, but I don't know how
Right.
that can even prove your story. And I'm always from the viewpoint of believing a victim and working backwards to disprove it. Believe a victim first. But I don't know. To me, this is so big. I don't even know how you unravel the whole thing. I don't.
Well, again, if I were to be, and I know this may be a problem. In fact, I'm going back right now to the actual original case, the charges, Sean Diddy Combs. I'm looking at it. This is from the September 17th. The actual charges, exploitation. I'm trying to see the actual. It's trafficking, sexual abuse, uh, sex trafficking, blah blah blah. Okay. Um, Let me just go through this again, and people may find this distasteful. I'm sorry, but I always think, frankly, as a lawyer, how would you prove this? Call your first witness, victim number one. State your name for the record. What happened? How old were you then? Yeah. My question is, how much money do you think you're going to get out of this? What? How much money do you think you're going to get out of this? Did you talk to Busby, the lawyer? 1-800? Did you call 1-800? Now, the reason why that's important is you can always impeach. Impeachment is an evidence term for affecting the credibility of, to show that somebody is is monetarily interested in this. That despite decades and decades and decades of forgetting, Mr. So-and-so, does your memory get better or worse with time? So you remember all this, right? Did you go to the police? Did you do this? No, you didn't do that. What about your parents? Where were they? The thing is that this may not help necessarily in terms of the federal case, because if there's one conviction, one probably is enough. But in making the civil case seem like this pile on, and here's the bottom line: Mr. Busby and the victims would not be suing if he didn't have any money. Now, that's not to say that this didn't happen. I'm not to say that their claims are not real, but no money, no verdict, no
Yes.
interest, no lawyers, no nothing. So consequently, let's see what happens. But each of these cases are going to be tough. And in the event, with the exception of children, it's so funny. You and I were talking about these women who were attending his parties. They weren't forced to go there. They weren't made to go there. They had to sign condition. You have to be such a height and weight, and you can't have tattoos. No mention, as you mentioned before, of age. Well, remember the Eileen Ford modeling agency, or working for Pan Am years ago, or if you were a stewardess, you had to be a certain size.
Yeah.
Some of the supermodels of the 80s talk about living on caffeine and cigarettes and cocaine, and so this is not enough. If Diddy were to ever say, or his lawyer were to say, anybody even make you go to this? No. Now, if there were drugs, how do I know anybody slipped you the drugs? How do I know this happened? How many years ago? What was the earliest time frame of this? What, 20 years ago? 5 years ago? 10 years
Uh,
ago?
93 cases. The lawsuits go back to 93.
Okay, so 30 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you took drugs, and you're going to prove he did it? That Diddy what ordered this? I don't understand.
Okay, but let me ask you
Now,
another question.
yeah.
Just to jump in here, what about these charges of sex trafficking over state lines, things like that? What is your legal opinion on?
Well, that,
Unless there are minors involved, which remains to be seen with that. I don't.
Even if it's quote prostitution. By the way, remember, a lot of these folks that we know, well, not that we know, but we hear about in the world of the left and liberal world, they always want to legalize sex work, and sex work is great. Well, this is sex work. So what do you mean prostitution? These women came on their own will. I mean, so that's going to be tough. Crossing state lines was an old federal jurisdictional basis. Federal court has to involve itself with something more than just some immediate local activity. It has to have a commerce clause and federal ramifications. You use the mail, you use wire. You take a case and you mail a letter and it becomes federal. But here is the bottom line. Where are the parents? Are they going to be testifying? Are they going to be a part of this?
We hear nothing about the parents. We hear nothing at all about guardians, parents, family members. We're just not hearing about it, which is very concerning to me.
So I'm telling you, while he looks, I would bet, if I had to bet, I would bet he was responsible for this. Isn't even 10% of what this guy did. But that's just my opinion.
Well, why now? Why do you think now? Because that's in my mind, if this goes back in 1990, he was an intern for 3 years with this Andre Harrell, who was a rapper, music business, who he's now dead. And in 93, he all of a sudden was elevated at a very young age. He would have been in his early 20s to this.
Listen,
entertainment.
Don't start with that. Look at Oprah. Who the hell's Oprah? Where'd she come from?
I'm just saying that this has been going on for decades without, and people have been whispering, especially we're in New York City, lots of whispers, right? Why now? I find that very curious.
I never understood that. Let me ask you this question. I love when people are saying, oh, who are the names involved? Jay-Z. Jay-Z what? Look, I know. And we never, ever say this thing publicly. But you and I know more dirt, more behind the scenes stuff, more what everybody's saying. It's not enough to prove anything. But this world is, we know. Do you remember years ago when Matt Lauer was going through his problems and Charlie Rose? I knew about this. I heard. I didn't even work there. I didn't even work at CBS. So the idea that there's all this stuff going on, not only that with Leonardo DiCaprio and all this, not doing anything wrong, but it's Hollywood. It's debauchery. The Stones, Led Zeppelin, the Beatles.
Yeah, but you're forgetting the difference with this case.
I'm not talking about minors.
I understand. The case with Dirty Diddy, supposedly the feds, when they raided the homes in Miami and California, took away video evidence. That's what we heard. Yes. So that may really play into who knows what's on those videos.
But what I'm saying is that the world of Hollywood itself is something that I don't want to be a part of it. We're not a part of it, but this goes on all the time. And yes, videos and the like. Look, let me also explain. It's not just him. You and I know. This is so awkward because I'm trying to pretend like I keep saying, as you and I know, because we talk about this all the time. Mm-hmm. There are folks who engage in all kinds of weird activities out on yachts. These big monster yachts. Not all of them. Some of them, they go out into international waters and they're basically floating brothels. Which is, listen, if this is consensual, have at it. However, don't you think that there are recording studios on those vessels as well? Of course there are. The two biggest industries right now, as we always discuss, are, of course, human trafficking and extortion, blackmail, honeypot. It's as old as whatever. So
I don't understand why people open themselves up to this, knowing there are phones, knowing there are recording devices, people hide in rooms. That's the part I do not understand. Are they so gone on? Are they so gone on drugs or no? But why would anybody expose themselves to that potential blackmail?
One of the reasons is because they become so, they feel so bulletproof, and they feel so, because they just feel like they're invisible. Look, you and I, here's one for you that I never understood. You think somebody from MI5, MI6 would have told Prince Andrew, look, stay away from this guy, Epstein.
I don't
Stay away
understand
from him.
that. I don't understand.
We know all about Bill Clinton would say, no, do not go there. Do not go there. We know all about this. We know, and we still don't know where all of his evidence, where his thumb drives, and so we don't know. We don't know anything about this. What's interesting is that people, we happened to be listening before on my iPad to various YouTube. People said, Jay-Z what? Jay-Z. Was Jay-Z at these parties? Who wasn't at these parties? They're in the Hamptons. Nothing wrong with the parties. Yes, but they've got pictures of what? Pictures of J-Lo with them. They were dating. They were girlfriend, boyfriend. People are confusing. They're thinking that this necessarily means something. Is it Illuminati throwing the rock? Were they making this? Was this a sign of the rock, of satanic? It's like, oh, please. Look, I'm always trying to calm people down. I'm supposedly the conspiracy theorist, and I'm always telling people, would you take it easy? I don't know what this stuff means. Sometimes they love it. Look, you and I remember in our generation, Alice Cooper. You remember all this satanic stuff and Black Sabbath and everything from, Anton LaVey, Sammy Davis Jr. These people are newbies. They're involved in this. Sorting through this, if he is involved in trafficking in children cannot consent. Trafficking, having a sexual battery with it, you cannot, period. That's one thing. That's in this pile. After that, good luck. Trafficking in women?
Perhaps drug trafficking. We don't know. Okay, let's wrap up this one because it remains to be seen. My only comment on all of this is, while everybody's concerned and talking about Dirty Diddy's kids were in a fist fight at a Halloween party, maybe Jay-Z, all these names, the real victims. Right. No, I'm just saying the real victims, the focus is removed from those who are real victims, or the talk about that, or the talk about, them coming forward because they do express this case, not potential victims of Dirty Diddy, even, that they'd like to see some sort of justice served, not even for money, just some sort of recognition, justice, the powerful one with the money over the vulnerable one. So we'll see where this goes in the next couple of days when we hear about this, I guess, secret grand jury that's not so secret. I want to ask you now about these Menendez brothers.
Oh, yeah.
That it was announced they have a new judge who's going to, this is what I read, will act very lenient towards them. And they're moving the trial in December, this resentencing. Is that what it's called? A trial for resentencing?
Are they changing venue, do a different court, different?
Well, yeah, I'm going to tell you about that. So, and they're changing venue to Van Nuys. And my question to you is, today we have the internet. I don't know about this changing venue. Does not seem to matter at all anymore. So,
by the way,
what are your thoughts?
You know where the name Van Nuys comes from? It's the first time the explorers were looking out over this. One of the explorers said, "Oh, Van Nuys." It's an old joke. Today,
that's like some Friars Club joke or something. That's horrible. It's a bad joke. I'm not a good audience for the jokes.
Friars Club. You're a great audience. If there was an audience of you, it would be like this. The whole audience of you. No. And you'd be analyzing it. It'd be like,
no, anyway. But I want to know why.
Okay, first of all, you bring up a good point.
Why are they even moving to Van Nuys? It's like, down the highway. I don't get it.
The only time it's ever really made a difference is that in the OJ case, when they were going to move the case from, let's say, downtown LA to Simi Valley. There's a different. Let me ask you this.
A lot's happened since the OJ as far as.
Oh, no. I know. But for example, let's say right now, do you think there's a difference in having a case? Would you rather be charged, let's say you're a criminal defendant, in the Bronx or Staten Island? Different story. Bronx, definitely. Staten Island, no way. Very conservative. But here's the thing. These are state judges. They're elected for the most part. They're not subject to lifetime tenure. It's either merit retention or they're elected. So that's number one. Number two, they're gonna end up. What Gascon is doing is he's punting. He should have just said, "Look, I'm going to ask the court to reopen it or whatever it is. We're going to do our own motion sua sponte. We're going to do our own motion to reopen the case, and we're going to drop the charges. Credit for time served. That's enough."
Why didn't he do it? Why do we think he didn't do it?
Because he's gutless. And the only reason he's doing this is because, remember, he's one of these Soros prosecutors. along with Kim Fox and Larry Krasner from Philly, and
You mean all
that
the losers? You
Boudin.
mean all the losers? I call them the
The lose,
losers.
yeah. Well, he basically he barely made it past a recall, and he's up in this current case. Last I heard, he's, believe it or not, 30 points behind. 30. So he's doing this. So he doesn't have the guts. And another spineless wonder out there is Gavin Newsom, who should say, "I'm going to commute the sentence. You've done enough." Here is the deal. They're eventually going to be, they're going to go into some kind of parole. They're going to re-sentence him under murder without the life, without the possibility of parole. And under the rules of California, under the statute, since they were under the age of 26 at the time of the commission of the offense, they are eligible for parole, which they most probably will get. And parole might be good. You might want to see if they kind of ease into it, little halfway house, a little monitoring. Just don't let people go. Just walk in. They've never. I bet you they don't even know about iPhones or anything. It's really it's cataclysmic, the change. That being said, understand something. They're guilty. They're guilty. And the question is, we're asking people, should people who are guilty, who one day snapped, and they were not nice kids, they were brats, and they were selling off, they were buying stuff, and they didn't seem to be, brokenhearted about anything, and they seemed to be cold-blooded killers. But the thing is, that was 1989. This is different. Do we ever allow people to get off the hook because of the fact that they've been through much torment? For example, they've been through so much torment. For example, a woman beaten, psychologically tortured. She has to stay with her husband, who is a brute because of her children. Years and years and years of this. Finally, one day, she says, "That's enough. Enough." And what does she do? She ends up, one day as he's watching TV, she comes behind him and blows his brains out. Now, that wasn't self-defense. She could have left. There was retreat. All of the rules of law, it's not insanity. They weren't insane. This didn't follow the McNaughton rule. They knew right from wrong. But what we're saying is, yeah, but you know what? This is different. And in the old days, it was impossible to think that this Menendez father was doing this. But now with corroborating evidence of letters that he wrote to a cousin or whatever at the time, interesting evidence questions, because that guy's dead. How do you introduce letters to somebody who's now dead? And how do you cross-examine a dead person? Anyway, are they self-authenticating? And that's over here. But the other issue is, you look at this right now and you're saying, it's different now. It's different. You're immersed in this. If you think they're treating kids poorly now, it was even worse then, because of this idea that, well, you can leave. Learned helplessness is a condition that people don't understand. People can't leave. They're psychologically tethered. They're kids. They're frozen. And when you do this to people, sometimes they act out. It's not perfect, but they've suffered. They've done their time. That's enough. And I think, and if you listen to what Garagos, the lawyer, said, they did some wonderful things during their stay. They didn't think they were ever getting out. They didn't do that thinking that this would look good for them at the parole hearing that they were never going to have. So it's good. It's about time. But you remember, you knew that case you told me about. Young girl killed her pimp.
After 7 years, she picked up his gun that was on the
Yeah.
nightstand when he was sleeping.
Yeah.
But they put her in jail.
Right.
Not,
Because
he was
right.
left out. There's two
Because
different cases. There's one that was
right.
murdered and one that
Right.
lived.
But the insanity defense doesn't apply because they're not insane. And the issue is that they know the difference between right and wrong. I've given this, you've heard me say this a million times. There are cases where sometimes people are in some kind of a psychotic fugue, and they'll push somebody in front of a subway. And they did it because the voices told them to do it. They knew the difference between right and wrong. They didn't want to do it. Well, under the rules, it doesn't apply. And they're insane because they didn't know. Who doesn't know the difference between right and wrong? A lot of times people in delusions will think they're in war and they'll run away from what they think are the Martians. We need to revamp this. This is why I'm against the death penalty. It's not because of moral reasons, but because it's not a one size fits all thing. So I'm glad. I believe their story. See, a lot of times I believe them. Where is Abramson? Remember the lawyer Leslie Abramson with the
Nowhere to be found. Not weighing in on this. As a matter of fact, they said the whole thing only came about because of the Netflix,
yeah
docudrama. Well, I don't know what it's called. It was a
yeah
10-part series
biopic
or something.
or something.
I was going to say docudrama, but it's
Okay.
not. I'm not sure what they're calling it these days.
Remember also
But
they were it was a hung jury at first. And then when they retried it, the judge kept all the information out. The first jury, at least some of them agreed, or it was not a unanimous verdict for guilt. So there was something to this story. This is something that is, these cases are rare. These cases are absolutely rare. They don't come up that often. But when they do, the law doesn't make allowance for it. There was a case years ago I forget the fellow's name. You may have seen it. You can see it on YouTube. His son was abused. The abuser was coming to an airport in custody. The father was on a payphone, a bank of payphones, with his back to him. As the abuser walked by, he pulls out a gun, bang, shoots him dead, drops the gun, said, "You've got me." He got like 3 years probation because the judge said,
yeah.
this isn't the killer. Look at the case of Daniel Penny, the former Marine here in New York, who was charged with manslaughter and negligent homicide. He was trying to help. He was trying to help stop this man who said somebody's going to die today. This is crazy. They're charging with manslaughter like he's a bad guy. He didn't intend to commit a crime. He was trying to help people.
That reminds me. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say with the Daniel Penny, there were 2 other guys on the subway train that were helping him. Now I know they didn't hold him, but they were holding his legs and things.
That's enough.
How come they were not charged as accomplices or something like that?
I could be crass and say because they were probably black and he's white, and if Daniel Penny was a black former Marine and the other guy, the Michael Jackson impersonator, if he were white versus black, who knows? This is Alvin Bragg. This is the same guy who hit Rudy Giuliani.
New York DA for those.
The New York DA, Trump, 34 counts of something that I don't even understand.
Speaking of Alvin Bragg, let's finish up with something. We have this Trendy Aras, this vicious Venezuelan cartel gang. I can't even call them a gang. They're just vicious. No. I don't even know what to call them. It's a family show, so I don't want to use certain words. But
what does it begin with? What does a word begin with?
Well, one begins with K. One begins with a K.
Killer.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. Certain words I just don't say.
Kinky Friedman.
But here's what I want to tell you.
I'm not good at this.
They are training their 9, 10, and 11-year-old boys to be little Trendy Aras. They have some cute little nickname for them. So those will be the ones that terrorize everybody on, the Broadway community and Times Square, run around New York and grab purses, wallets, watches, storm the CVS's and the kids. This is unacceptable. This is enough. We're bearing down on an election in a couple of days. What are your thoughts about these baby criminals? I don't even want to put baby and criminal in the same. What should we do with them? Because they're not getting held or anything like that.
Should be hit with federal organized crime racketeering. Those mammoth cases where, like they used to do with the mafia, 25, 30, 40, 50 years maximum for having a criminal cartel. This is perfect. Same thing with Antifa.
You mean the kids should be included in that criminal cartel?
Well, the kids can be handled.
I'm asking about the kids. I'm asking about the kids because they're now getting the kids to do all this dirty work.
Well, there's a juvenile. There is a juvenile. They also need to be deported immediately.
I was going to say, can't they be kicked out? They're here illegally.
Absolutely. You have no status here if you're an illegal. If you're born here, we'll talk about that later. This is what anybody would expect in any other country. That's simple. Kick them out. Get rid of them now. That's what I say.
Get them out. No, this would not be allowed, in my opinion, in any other country in the world. Finish this up, please, with, do you have any other headlines you want us to know about? Anything legal we should be looking for or thinking about? Anything we should be analyzing and discussing?
Well, not really in view of what you're talking about. I
do have one question I just thought of. There's this Kids Online Safety at KOSA. bipartisan bill, and it cleared the House 91-3, cleared the Senate, excuse me. Now it's sitting with the House. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, will not address it, will not bring it to a vote, will not put it on a schedule. We're kind of in this lame duck session right now. Nothing happens. Everybody's waiting for the election in January and all this stuff.
Right.
The bottom line for this Kids Online Safety Act, which would be the first new child legislation since 1998, simply asks, here's the bottom line: big tech take accountability for some guardrails around algorithms that have been proven dangerous, eating disorders, harming oneself. They take action instead of leaving it up to the mother or the child or the person.
Right.
Why do you think this is just at a standstill?
Because they're trying to create the idea of the slippery slope exception, which is what the NRA used to do when they used to stand for something. They passed no gun legislation, no nothing, out of fear that it would give the impression, oh, we can pass legislation. Even though that may make sense, they want nothing at all to be said. The question is threatening to get rid of Section 230 of the Computer Decency Act, or whatever that's called, the CD.
Communications Decency Act.
Decency Act, right. Get rid of that. Threaten is like, okay, fine. If you don't want to do something, we'll take away 230. Wait. Because that's what keeps them. That's their immunity that they need. Just like vaccine companies needed their immunity during that, which is another story. But
that's a whole nother. That's a whole other program.
That remains to be seen, indeed.
Well, you know what? We have to finish up. I want to thank you, Lionel Nation on YouTube, as everybody can see. Also, LionelMedia.com is the website. At Lionel Media on X, or Twitter, as I like to call it. Thank you for sharing your legal and media analysis of these breaking headlines that are ongoing. And I'll see you in a few minutes.
Call me sometime.
I'll see you in a few minutes when I open the door. But thank you very much. There goes.
Indeed.
Thanks, Lionel.
Thank you.